Hey guys, what's going on? I have another beginning deck, and as you can tell, it's time to play chess today, as Chessmon is the strategy we'll be focusing on, as we have another Digimon deck for beginners. So I do want to thank you guys for being a part of the army as we are moving forward, and we're going to get started. But let's talk about the criteria of what I believe makes a good beginning deck, starting off with the most important one being that it has to be straightforward and clear. I think anytime you're playing your first deck in any card game, it needs to make sense, because if it doesn't do the leg lifting for its player, then it's not really a good beginning deck, because then it's not really good for beginners. So a beginning deck really should be able to make sense of its strategy, but also do the leg lifting, so that everyone who is playing the deck for the first time or playing the game for the first time getting a good understanding of what the deck is supposed to do and the mechanics of the game. Secondly, it has to be easy to use, as ease of use is a mandatory, I think, for beginning decks, because a lot of times if you are not I would say an intuitive player on the ball of the game, like when you start a game, you understand everything really well. I think a complicated combo strategy or a deck that has a little bit more pieces to understand than others is not necessarily the best when it comes to a beginning deck. When it comes to a beginning deck, I think it being easy to use is always going to be a big benefit versus a detriment, because easier understanding of combos and the applicability of a strategy is very good for a first-time player in order for them to grasp the game, but also to make sure that when they start to play the deck a bit more in depth, that there's a lot of things that they know, because the deck is very easy to use. Additionally, we have the final one being budget-minded. I think whenever you're starting a game, you shouldn't have to pitch so much money into it. It's just my personal belief. Many people do believe that as well, but I really think a budget-minded strategy is always better, because if you choose to like the game, you choose to not like the game, or maybe you just want to play casually, it's always good that you don't have to invest a lot of money to get started for a hobby that you maybe just want to play casually, or maybe do want to play competitively. This is where budget-minded does come in, because if you want to take, say, your favorite strategy to the next tier level, or you want to bring it to a competitive stage, you're going to be able to put more money into it, so you understand that applicability of money in the game. But after that, those are all the criterias. We're talking about Chessmon, of course, today, which is a deck that I am very glad that in one of my earliest Digimon decks for beginners, someone commented about Chessmon as a deck, and I at first was thinking that I don't know if this was a good deck for beginners, but after reviewing it and actually trying it a little bit, I understand that this is actually a very suitable deck for beginners, and it actually has a lot of good things going for it. So we're going to start off by talking about the game plan. Now, the game plan for Chessmon is a bit different than a lot of the other strategies, and the main reason for this is that since Digimon is a game where you have to attack your opponent directly to win, that's a standard, but when it comes to Chessmon, it does not play like most of the strategies I have shown on the channel. Most of the time, a lot of the decks are linear. This is not. The main reason why is that your main focus is obviously to chip away at your opponent's security, which is somewhat standard for a lot of Digimon decks, but the key thing is this deck plays with dual color cards, and it uses them in a different way than most decks. Starting off with your cards that are dual color, the main thing is there are still cards that specifically have a role in the deck, and this is not actually difficult to understand, so I didn't want to say it's not that complicated. More importantly, you use the yellow Chessmons, or the ones that are predominantly yellow as their first color, to attack during your turn. This is more so because they have on deletion effects throughout the strategy that allows you to play more Chessmon out in order to deploy more units, as the main thing of this game is to, or specifically the strategy of this deck, is so that you use the yellow predominant Chessmons as attacking pieces, and then the black color dominant Chessmon are used as defensive pieces. Very similarly, if you're playing, I guess, a chess board itself, the yellow ones are more so your pawns you would sacrifice during your offensive moves, but then you keep the black variant of the Chessmons ready for defensive options, so it is rather cool. Additionally, you use your Tamers to accelerate the strategy, which is very important. The main reason why is when you see the Tamers we play, thanks to a lot of additions made for the specific typing of puppet, there is a lot more tools this deck could use, and it is very good, and you'll see in a minute. Additionally, one of the cool things you do is that you do punish your opponent for deleting your Digimon by playing replacements. This is one of the main benefits of the black line, but more importantly, it's just the main benefit of your deck. So if your opponent has a redirect attacker or blockers, they may be less inclined to want you to not do a security check, because if your Digimon are not deleted, they won't have to worry about that. But if they do delete them, then they have to worry about you playing more Digimon. So that is always a plus in its own regard. Additionally, we're going to be getting into the overview now, because we'll talk about the cards. And this deck is interesting because it actually has two different sort of positions you can take. The reason I say it that way is when we look at our eggs, you'll understand. So starting off with our eggs, we have two of choice that I really like. First being the BT6 Pagumon, where on deletion you reveal the top card of your deck, and if it is a black Digimon card, you add it to your hand. Otherwise, you place that card on the bottom. This is because all of the Chessmon Digimon are, dual color yellow black, so the cool advantage is you'll always be getting them. And then we also have the this is ST18 Kiaromon. The main reason this one is so important is that when attacking, if you have another Digimon, you draw one. So the main focus of this card is to just allow you to gain other draws while you have more Chessmon on field. This is more so to pair up with your yellow predominant Chessmon by digivolving them in the back. Vice versa with the Pagumon, you could go ahead and use the black variant or yellow variant on it, but the key thing is the deck builds you'll technically be able to do with Chessmon is why we play it that way. Moving into the rookies here, we actually start off with some very good ones, and these are primarily your main Chessmon you want to run. So I do have them in their different brackets, and I'll explain why. So starting off, we have both of the BT13 Pawn Chessmons. So both of them are from the same set. One is obviously yellow-black, the other is black-yellow. Starting off with the yellow-black one, if it's your turn on deletion, you may play one level 3 or lower Digimon card with Chessmon in its name from your hand without paying the cost. And then if you have 8 or more Digimon cards with Chessmon in its name from or in your trash, you have to add 2 to the maximum level of the Digimon you can play by this effect. So going all the way up to level 5. Additionally, this one carries Reboot as it's inheritable, so that is important. And the Black Pawn Chessmon has a very similar effect. However, it has blocker, and its on deletion is if it's your opponent's turn, you can use that on deletion effect. So one is primarily meant for your turn to be aggressive, the other one is definitely meant for your opponent's turn to be defensive, and that is the key. Additionally, one of the old cards played with them was from BT13. It was this Gatsumon, which carries blocker, but the main reason you play this, and you'll see in a build with one of the builds you can play with this deck, is the on deletion. If it's your opponent's turn, you may reveal the top 3 cards of your deck, and you get to add 1 black card among them to the hand, and then you place the rest on the bottom. This was a very important card for this deck before the introduction of other puppet and also Pawn Chessmon, because this card was an additional searcher, so you can load your hand up with more Chessmon Digimon. Moving into our other ones, we have the Pawn Chessmons out of ST19, and we also have Shumon from ST19. Now, the main reason we're playing these cards as well is because the Pawn Chessmons and all of the Chessmon archetype are actually a part of the puppet trait, or have the puppet trait. So this is very important because they are playable and accessible with the puppet trait cards. But the main thing from the cards from this starter deck was that they include a little bit more advantage to the deck by using the yellow Pawn Chessmon that trades in for its on deletion effect. It has an on play effect where by trashing 1 card with the puppet trait, you draw 2 cards, and it carries Reboot as it's inheritable. The key factor of this card is obviously to filter to get you more draws and set up your trash, where the Pawn Chessmon that is black has blocker but has the same effect where on deletion, by trashing one card with the puppet trait, you get to draw 2. So a very solid effect and a very good combination. Now, the main reason we would play Shumon from this starter deck is that on play, you reveal the top 3 cards of your deck. You get to add 1 card with the puppet trait and 1 card with the liberator trait among them to the hand, and you place the rest on the bottom. And then its inheritable is that during your turn, all of your opponent's security Digimon get minus 3000 DP. The main focus of this inclusion is that in combination with the cards we are talking about, we are adding consistency in terms of drawing, but more importantly with Shumon, you can add liberator cards to the deck to make it a little bit more efficient if you so choose to go that way with that build. Additionally, it gives you an access to an in-theme Tamer to assist your strategy, but the main focus of this is that you're now able to just have another rookie that's yellow versus if you want another rookie that's black, but also can digivolve in the back for free, which is something important that the Gatsumon also provides if you so choose to go with Pagumon as your egg. But additionally, we go to the level 4s, and interestingly enough, this is where you can kind of see the engine adding itself together, where we have both of the Knight-Chessmon, specifically having their replay colors, where the yellow pawn chess or yellow dominant Knight-Chessmon is, if it's your turn on deletion, you may play one level 4 or lower Digimon card with Chessmon in its name from your hand without paying the cost, and it carries Reboot as its inheritable. Additionally, for the black Knight-Chessmon, it has blocker, carrying the same effect as its white Knight-Chessmon counterpart. However, the advantage of both is that they have special evolution conditions to Digivolve on top of level 3s with Chessmon in their name. So this does mean that the Knight-Chessmon are able to reduce their evolution costs. So Digivolving for 2 on top of a Pawn Chessmon is not a bad thing at all. Additionally, our supplementary champion is going to be Shumon from EX7. This one allows you that if you have one or fewer Tamers, you may play one Orisa Kinosaki from your hand without paying the cost. And additionally, it has the same inheritable as Shumon, where during your turn, all of your opponent's security Digimon get minus 3000 DP. It will make sense when we get to the Tamers, and you'll see why we include this card. Moving into Bishop-Chessmon and Rook-Chessmon, they very much follow the same counterparts theme of the strategy, where Bishop-Chessmon is, if it's your turn on deletion, you may play one level 5 or lower Digimon card with Chessmon in its name from your hand without paying the cost, carrying Reboot as its inheritable. And Rook-Chessmon has blocker, carrying the same ability to play out a level 5 or lower. The key factor is they also have special evolution conditions to go on top of any level 4 with Chessmon in its name for a cost of 3. So that is cool, keeping in theme. And now it's time to go to the level 6s, because like I said, the strategy is really straightforward, as you could tell, but we have 3 to go over, 2 in theme and 1 is a supplementary. Starting off from BT13, we have both Queen Chessmon and King Chessmon. Now both of them actually are different for the strategy. Starting off, we have Queen Chessmon, who is a blocker, but during all turns, when one of your Digimon with Chessmon in its name is deleted, you can unsuspend this Digimon, meaning that this card is an indirect aggressive piece to the deck, allowing you to sacrifice your other Chessmon in order to either restand it or vice versa, being a defensive motion that allows your Chessmon to be deleted on your opponent's turn, so you can reactive this to be a blocker again. And then we have King Chessmon, which is the predominant yellow version, being able to be played from the hand while you have 8 or more Chessmon in the trash. You can reduce its play cost by 5 or 8, I think, so you can reduce it to about 5 cost or 8 cost, so it makes it pretty much easier to get out. But additionally, if it's on play when Digivolving, you need to delete one of your other Digimon in order to play one Chessmon or one Digimon card with Chessmon other than King Chessmon from your hand without paying the cost. The main goal of this is so that you can delete your yellow Chessmon with it on the field, so that it can play out something like Queen Chessmon, and then vice versa, you'd have another deletion to trigger as well with that Digimon to start getting more Chessmon to the field. BT13 also included another card which has seen a lot of play indirectly with the Chessmon line, this being Jumbo Gammamon. I will explain later on for the build for Jumbo Gammy, because this is a very funny deck. But Jumbo Gammy is a very good card because it carries blocker, and then during your opponent's turn, when an opponent's Digimon attacks, you may play one level 5 or lower Digimon card from this card's Digi Evolution sources without paying the cost. Now, I'll explain later on when you see it, but Jumbo Gammy is a card that has definitely seen a lot of play alongside the Chessmon line, and you'll understand in a bit. But going into our Tamers, we have 3 to talk about today, starting off with the actual in-theme Tamer, that being Miki Kurosaki and Megumi Shirakawa. This is important because this is your in-theme Tamer designed specifically for Chessmon, where on play, you may play one Digimon card with Pawn Chessmon in its name from your hand without paying the cost. And then during all turns, when one of your 2-color black and yellow Digimon cards are played, by suspending this Tamer, you draw 1 card and gain 1 memory. For its security effect, you simply play it out. So very solid. Now we talk about the additional Tamers you can play. You do need to play Miki and Megumi because they're very important for the deck. But when it comes to our supplementary Tamer in the form of Orisa, it really does depend on how you want to build the deck in order to gain advantage. So starting off, we have ST19's Ariza Kinosaki here, where she's a memory setter, so you may want to play at least a copy of her because you want to get that 3 memory. But more importantly, during your turn, when an effect plays out one of your tokens or a puppet trait Digimon, by suspending this Tamer, one of those Digimon gain Rush for the turn. Additionally, her security effect is simply to player, but you can see why this card is so good. It gives you the ability to gain Rush, so it turns your pawn Chessmons that you have multiple yellow ones into aggressive pieces immediately. Then finally, talking about the EX7 Ariza, this one is important because it is a memory booster, and additionally, during all turns, when any of your tokens or puppet trait Digimon are deleted, by suspending this Tamer, you may play one level 3 Digimon card with the puppet trait from your from your hand without paying the cost. So the important factor of having Ariza in this deck is that if you start to see, both Arizas offer different tools. So Ariza from EX7 is a way to simply get more units to the field, whereas Ariza from ST19 is ability giving you Rush, is very important to keep the aggression going. So very solid. Now, talking about the cards that also pair up very well with the deck, we'll talk about this as when I get to the combo portion of the deck, I'll talk about it. But we do have the cards that go along with Jumbo Gammy if you want to play the Jungle Gammy, or for those on YouTube who know, the Lagamis Prime special of Jumbo Gammy Control. The key factor is you have Keenan Crier and we have Laplace's Demon. Now, Laplace's Demon, I think, is a card you can definitely play in this deck because it allows you to force your opponent to attack, so you can block a lot during your opponent's turn. And Keenan is pretty much only played if you're going to use it in the Jumbo Gammy build. Otherwise, you will not play it. But definitely, Laplace's Demon is a card that you want to talk about. Now, let's jump into some of the plays, and we're going to go into it right now. So starting off, we have our first one, and I'm going to showcase kind of what you do when you're playing predominant yellow and your egg being Kiaromon versus having something like Pagumon. So starting off, what you want to do for your opening turns is rather simple. You really want to focus on making sure that you deploy your pawn Chessmons directly in the way that you want. So in this theming, for instance, if you have the yellow pawn Chessmon and black pawn Chessmon, this is usually what you want to do. So you almost always want to hard play out the black pawn Chessmons because their effects are on deletion and they have blocker. So this is always something you want to do just to make sure that your opponent either can't aggress you, or if they try to delete something, you will get an advantage of it. More importantly, what you're going to want to do though is usually have some type of resource like this, where you're going to digivolve the black one in the back, which seems a little strange, but the main reason is for the inheritable effects of something like Kiaromon, where when you push them up, if you have the yellow one, you primarily want to make sure they're on top of Kiaromon. Usually you only do the back one if you know you're going to build up, so I didn't want to show that. But the main thing you want to proceed to do is attack. So the main thing is you attack with your predominantly yellow pawn Chessmon so they can trigger their effects in the Kiaromon to draw. And then effectively once it's deleted, you'll then trigger its effect and play out maybe another pawn Chessmon. So the main goal of this is that you're resource looping quicker, just so that you can draw a card, and then simply if you draw pawn Chessmon, you could then immediately deploy it that way. Now, talking about the specific black version, where if you choose to play a different egg, something like Pagumon, this is some of the results you get, because Pagumon does change the pace. Starting off, when you have fields like this, what you're primarily wanting to do is very similar to what we just did, but you maybe want to focus on using other cards. Something like the Gatsumon that I showed earlier on is something you might want to digivolve in the back because of its ability to simply delete itself, and then when it is deleted, you get to look at the top 3 and add one, so you have that option. But if you're just going to go with the Chessmons, this is kind of the setup you want to see. Something like this, where the Pagumon is on maybe a yellow pawn Chessmon, so that you can get that on deletion a bit quicker, but then proceed to attack very similarly, then proceed to the on deletion, you find a yellow black, or a solid black card, sorry, and then you're just going to add it to your hand, so it's never a miss. So it's very cool. Moving into something like Megumi and Miki and Megumi, these are very important because what you're realistically trying to do here is simply use them as your starting point. So if you get them in your opening hand, it's very good, because the main thing you're trying to do is just have them be deployed and immediately play out your different pawn Chessmons so that you'll gain a memory back. So effectively, you're getting not a memory setter, but you're getting a resource loop started by having them immediately. So this is the main reason we play them. You just want to accelerate your gameplay as quickly as you can. So that's pretty much why Miki and Megumi are so important, especially with the Lagamis Prime or vice versa, the Jumbo Gammy line. You use Megumi and Miki as your way to gain memory by suspending them when you play the Chessmon on your opponent's turn, which is also one of the key factors of this card or this Tamer, is that it works on both turns. So your opponent is caught off guard a lot of times when you go ahead and suspend them and gain memory and draw cards, because it is a good resource loop. But talking about King and Queen, they're very important, but necessarily for a beginner that you play them because they're a part of the toolbox of the deck, effectively allowing you to kind of toggle in. So like the main focus you want to have is something like King Chessmon, for instance. You want to load up the trash and bring it out in the late game, so that what you do is you proceed to go ahead and delete one of your other Digimon, like I said earlier, and go into Queen this way. So that you have Queen and King side by side, just after a long period of the game. But next, I want to showcase how good Orisa is in the deck, because both Orisas offer so much to the strategy because of their association with puppet traits that you can't ignore them. So the main focus is something like Orisa from the ST19 starter deck will give you Rush. So what you're trying to do here is just simply attack, swing, lose your resource, and then once you play, suspend out the Orisa to give Rush. The key factor here is that your puppet trait cards are just going to be able to do a lot more damage this way, so that, you know, you can keep your resource loop going quicker, which is something you want to do with the specific ST19 version of Orisa. So that's the key thing. It just gives you a little bit more ways to be aggressive. For the EX7 version, what you're doing here is just making sure that you can play more Digimon. So this allows you, when you have only the black pawn Chessmons, right, to effectively get them to have an on-deletion effect in a way where you'll swing with them on your turn, they'll be deleted, and you'll just trigger Orisa to go ahead and play out your corresponding piece to allow you access to your other pawn Chessmons. And pretty much having both of them on field can be very good, but it isn't up to you. So that's all the combo portions really for the deck. I didn't show any of the Jumbo Gammy ones because I do think people should check that out. But also, if you're a beginner, I do like that build. It's just I don't recommend it for beginners because it is a lot different than the standard Chessmon build, but it is fun and I do have it included, so just in case. Starting off, we have what the actual like yellow pure version, I guess you could say, of Chessmon would look like. So it looks like something like this. The main reason why it's structured in this sense is that you really want to focus on making sure you get Chessmon in your hands, because if you don't, it's going to feel really strange. But the key factor is the ST19 Shumon is here because it searches for all of your puppet trait cards as well as your Liberator Tamers. So you do get access to those cards additionally. So it is important. Pretty much we're maxing out on everything that's already standard as well. So obviously all the cards from BT 13 are mandatory because that's pretty much the only main line of the Chessmon strategy. Additionally, for King and Queen, we play more Queen than King. This is more so because of how important Queen is as a defensive piece, but also as an offensive piece. So King is still important, but it's only when you get to that point. Obviously, Miki and Megumi are maxed here because you want to see them as quickly as possible. Additionally, Orisas, both the ST19 and EX7, are in the background because there are two of them of each, because I think running 4 is fine. You have a higher chance of finding your memory setter. You also have a high chance of finding your memory booster. So you do have that ability, and you are playing no copies of Shushumon. This is just because you wanted to have space, but you can still search them to play them. It isn't up to you if you want to find space for Shushumon in the deck, so you can go ahead and toggle it in, but it's still solid. And then Lapis Demon as well as yellow memory boost is important because since our egg is yellow, we're going to hard play that and to do it. Also, you can play physical training if you want. I just didn't recommend it here because obviously for space, but you definitely could if you want to try it out, because this deck really doesn't focus on Digi-evolving much, but you absolutely can if you so choose. Now we have the next version, which is the Jumbo Gammy version. So this one focuses more on the actual Jumbo Gammy combo, where you set up Jumbo Gammamon with Lapis Demon, your opponent attacks, and then you rest all of your Mickey and Megumis as well as your Keen and Criers from BT13 to gain a lot of memory, draw cards, and put your opponent on the back burner like they can't attack. So the main goal of that is to basically turn skip your opponent. Focusing on it, you run Pagumon as your egg because you are running the BT13 Gatsumon to help you search for cards. So you do run your Pawn Chessmon line still because you reduce the ST19s because you don't need them as much, but you still need to see your Pawn Chessmons to get the deck going. Additionally, we have the same lineup when it comes to our champions and ultimates. We even reduce the ultimates a little bit because you do Digivolve, but it's not as much as you think. That's why Queen Chessmon's only in here at 1 and there's no king because you will be using it, but you want to focus more on the combo. That's also why BT11 Gammamon is here. Originally, I thought this card was expensive until I realized they gave it a reprint. This card is a mandatory in the deck because it helps you play out Tamers by searching the top of your deck. So you do play this as your ultimate. So it's the only thing you do want to Digivolve like your Knight Chessmons into because it does help, or hard play it to do that. Additionally, you play 4 copies of Jumbo Gammamon. This card is your boss technically for this version of Chessmon, and it does allow you to do some fun plays, so it is cool. Also, 4 Mickey Megumi are mandatory here because you really have to find them because they help with the combo. Additionally, 2 Arizas here at max, so 1 ST19, 1 EX7, because you still use her effect, but you use it significantly less. So she's important, but you're playing her less. And then 3 of the BT13 Keen and Crier. This is very important because it allows the deck to do some of its unfair combos, and it is very fun to play, trust me. Obviously, 4 Laplace's Demon because you need it, and the 2 Black Memory Boost here because of all your pieces. Jumbo Gammy is also a black card, so by playing the Black Memory Boost, it gives you access to finding Gammamon as well, but additionally, finding access to Jumbo Gammy is important, and then finding access to all of your Chessmon line too is important when you need it. Now, closing off for the budget of this deck, I was actually very happy to tell people that this deck is actually buildable for under $20 on both versions. At max, I think about $20. At lowest end, you could probably swing everything for $15. This is mostly because sometimes it's hard to find some of the cards, but otherwise, everything in the set for these decks are extremely cheap. That's why I was very glad we could go with stuff from like the ST19 structure deck because it does make the deck a lot more powerful, but also brings down the price for you guys who are more budget conscious. Additionally, you can increase the price of the deck by adding more cards into it if you so choose, but it is up to you, and is one of the main reasons why I really enjoyed putting this deck up for you guys today. But that's all I've got for you guys today. This has been a how to play Chessmon for Digimon decks for beginners, and I hope you guys found something very important that will help you out today. But that's all I've got for you guys, and as always, this has been Brad from the Ad Army signing off, and for all of you out there, just sign on.